MS Scandinavian Star. The MS Scandinavian Star was a passenger ferry operating cross-Scandinavian routes, known for its regular service between Denmark and Norway. On the night of April 7, 1990, while 482 people aboard slept, a fire broke out on Deck 3 and moved through the ship at a speed that left no time to react. The interior materials were highly flammable, fire doors sat improperly sealed, and toxic gases including carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide flooded the hallways within minutes. Passengers woke to darkness, thick smoke, and corridors that had already become death traps. The crew, undertrained and unable to coordinate, failed to guide anyone to safety. By the time the chaos ended, 158 people were dead, most of them Norwegian. Investigators initially pointed to a Danish passenger with a history of arson, but that conclusion began falling apart as evidence mounted. Signs of multiple fires breaking out in separate areas of the ship suggested something far more deliberate. Adding to the suspicion, the vessel had been insured for twice its actual value just before the fire, a detail that pointed investigators toward a possible insurance fraud scheme that has never been fully resolved. RMS Olympic. The RMS Olympic was a British ocean liner launched in 1911, the first and longest-serving of the famous Olympic-class ships, a class that also included her ill-fated sisters Titanic and Britannic. She was admired across the industry for her engineering precision, luxurious design, and for briefly holding the title of the world's largest ocean liner. On her sixth westbound voyage in 1911, departing Southampton bound for New York, she collided with HMS Hawke, a British protected cruiser whose design incorporated a reinforced ramming bow, a relic of older naval warfare doctrine. The Hawke's armored bow tore two massive holes into Olympic's hull, flooded two watertight compartments, and twisted her propeller shaft, pushing sections of the hull back by 8 feet. What followed stunned everyone watching. Olympic did not sink. She turned around and made it back to Southampton entirely under her own power. HMS Hawke, despite being a warship with a reinforced bow, had that same bow crushed and nearly capsized in the collision. Olympic's survival earned her a reputation as unsinkable, a reputation that would cast a long shadow when her sister, Titanic, slipped beneath the Atlantic just months later, and the world struggled to believe it. RMS Carpathia. The RMS Carpathia was a Cunard Line passenger steamship that entered service in 1903, built for comfort and efficiency on transatlantic routes rather than speed or size. She would have remained an unremarkable vessel had wireless operator Herald not overheard Titanic's distress signal on the night of April 14, 1912, and immediately alerted Captain Arthur Rostron. Carpathia drove through ice-filled waters at maximum speed and arrived 2 hours after Titanic had already gone under. Over the next 4 hours, her crew pulled 705 survivors from the freezing Atlantic, wrapping them in blankets and providing care while the rest of the ocean remained silent. Captain Rostron received a Congressional Gold Medal and a knighthood. The ship that saved so many would meet its own violent end 6 years later. On July 17, 1918, German submarine U-55 fired 3 torpedoes into Carpathia while she sailed as part of a convoy near Ireland. The first struck her port side, the second destroyed the engine room and killed 5 crew members, and the third hit while survivors were already boarding lifeboats, accelerating the final collapse. All 57 passengers and the remaining 218 crew members were successfully evacuated before the hull disappeared beneath the surface. The vessel that saved hundreds from one disaster managed to save nearly everyone from its own. SS Edmund Fitzgerald. The SS Edmund Fitzgerald was one of the largest and most respected cargo freighters to operate on the Great Lakes. A 729-foot vessel with a strong reputation built across years of service hauling iron ore across Lake Superior. On November 10, 1975, she was carrying over 26,000 tons of taconite pellets from Superior, Wisconsin toward Detroit when a ferocious late-season storm moved in with hurricane-force winds and waves reaching 35 feet. Captain Ernest McSorley radioed the nearby SS Arthur M. Anderson at 7:10 p.m. to report that the ship was listing, that at least one radar was malfunctioning, and that water was coming in. His last words over the radio were calm, almost routine. Minutes later, the Fitzgerald vanished from radar entirely, without sending a single distress signal. All 29 crew members were lost. When the wreck was located days afterward, the ship had broken into two massive sections, resting 530 feet below the surface, the bow upright and the stern flipped completely upside down. What actually sank her has never been definitively established. Competing theories include structural failure under wave stress, rogue waves known as the Three Sisters striking in rapid succession, flooding through leaking hatch covers, or a hidden collision with a shoal near Caribou Island that damaged her hull long before anyone realized it. MS Herald of Free Enterprise. The MS Herald of Free Enterprise was a modern roll-on, roll-off ferry operated by Townsend Thoresen, designed for rapid vehicle and passenger loading across competitive English Channel routes. On the evening of March 6, 1987, she departed Zeebrugge, Belgium, carrying hundreds of passengers and vehicles, and capsized within minutes of leaving the harbor. Assistant boatswain Mark Stanley, responsible for closing the bow doors, had fallen asleep in his cabin after returning from duty when the harbor station's call was issued, never making it back to complete the task. Supervisors did not verify the doors were secured. The ship departed with her bow doors fully open, and as she gathered speed, seawater flooded the vehicle deck and triggered what engineers call the free surface effect, a rapid and catastrophic destabilization of the vessel. Within approximately 90 seconds, the ship listed violently to port and rolled onto her side in shallow water. Power failed immediately, leaving passengers in total darkness, many trapped below deck in freezing water. Nearby dredgers, Belgian Navy divers, and rescue helicopters responded quickly, but 193 people were already dead. The investigation exposed a chain of negligence, stretching from a single sleeping crew member all the way through layers of supervisory failure, with no individual at any level having confirmed the most basic safety requirement before the ship moved. SS Princess Sophia. The SS Princess Sophia was a sturdy steel passenger ship built for the Canadian Pacific Railway's coastal fleet, designed specifically to handle the difficult conditions along the Pacific Northwest and Alaskan coastline, equipped with a double hull for exactly that purpose. On October 23, 1918, she departed Skagway, Alaska, carrying approximately 353 passengers and crew through a deteriorating snowstorm with rising winds. That night, navigating Lynn Canal in near-zero visibility, she ran directly onto Vanderbilt Reef, an underwater formation that tore into her hull. The ship held together initially, and several rescue vessels arrived at the scene, but conditions on and around the reef made any attempt at evacuation genuinely dangerous. Captain Leonard Locke made the decision to wait for the weather to improve, rather than risk a rushed transfer that could cost more lives than it saved. On October 25th, the storm returned with greater intensity and physically lifted the Princess Sophia off the reef, tearing the hull open in the process. The ship sank so rapidly, there was no time to launch a single lifeboat. Every person aboard died. When searchers combed the area afterward, the only survivor found was an English setter, the vessel's mascot, that had somehow swum to shore, making the Princess Sophia the deadliest maritime disaster in the combined history of British Columbia and Alaska, and one of the most haunting examples of how cautious judgment and terrible fortune can arrive at exactly the same moment.